General George Patton stands before a mass grave, corpses stacked like cordwood, skeletal remains, the stench visible in the twist of his face. He has seen combat. He has seen death in every form war produces. But nothing has prepared him for this. His jaw clenches. His hand tightens into a fist. Patton had seen war, but he had never seen this. And when the locals said we didn't know, Patton decided to show them hell. April 1945. Eastern Germany. The war in Europe is collapsing. For 6 years, the Nazis had built a machine of industrialized death. Concentration camps dotted the landscape. Most were hidden not in shadow, but in plain sight. Behind forests, beyond small towns, in places where the convenient fiction of ignorance could be maintained. Ohrdruf was one of them. A few miles from the town of Gotha, the camp held thousands. Prisoners worked in quarries. They died from disease, starvation, and execution. The camp's commander, Major Riedel, used it as his personal laboratory of cruelty. When the Nazis realized the Americans were coming, they tried to erase it. They burned buildings. They killed the remaining prisoners. They buried bodies in mass graves and set them on fire. But they didn't erase it completely. On April 4, 1945, Patton's Third Army liberated Ohrdruf. What they found shattered something in the soldiers who witnessed it. Photographs don't capture it. Words fail. You have to imagine the smell, the buzzing of flies over thousands of corpses. The realization that this wasn't enemy combatants. These were civilians, slave laborers, political prisoners. Many had been worked to death in the months before liberation. Patton's response was immediate. Raw, furious, he stood in the ruins and made a decision. The people of Gotha, 3 miles away, claimed they knew nothing. They said the camp was secret. They said the soldiers kept it hidden. They said they were innocent bystanders, victims of their own government. Patton didn't believe them. And more than that, he understood something about human nature that many military commanders missed. Denial is a choice. Ignorance is a fortress we build. But if you can shatter that fortress, if you can make someone see what they've claimed they couldn't see, something breaks inside them. That's when conscience becomes possible. April 12, 1945. Patton issued an order. The Mayor of Gotha, Herrmann Weise, the town leaders, the citizens, everyone who claimed ignorance. They were marched to Ohrdruf under armed guard. Patton made them walk through the camp. He made them see the ovens, the torture chambers, the piles of belongings stripped from the dead. He made them step over corpses. He made them breathe the air. He made them understand with their senses, not their intellect, what had been done. Witnesses describe Patton's rage, his voice, the way he forced German civilians to confront the reality they had chosen not to see. Some broke down, some vomited, some tried to turn away, and the soldiers wouldn't let them. The Mayor Weise walked through the camp in silence, his face gray, his hands shaking. What Patton was doing wasn't just punishment. It was something deeper. It was the violent collision between the comfortable lie of I didn't know and the unbearable truth of I could have known. I chose not to know. There's a difference. In the months that followed, the Allies would force thousands of German civilians to tour liberated camps. Eisenhower ordered it. He wanted Germany to understand what had been done in their name. He wanted the world to see Germany forced to witness its own crime. But Patton understood something about witness that transcended military policy. He understood that you can't unknow what you've seen. You can't unsee a grave full of bodies. You can't convince yourself of ignorance once you've walked through the evidence of slaughter. April 13th, 1945, the day after the forced tour. Mayor Weise was found dead in his home. The official cause was listed differently by different sources: heart attack, some said. Suicide, others claimed. The truth disappeared into the fog of war and conflicting reports. What we know is this: a man confronted the reality he had denied was possible. And he couldn't bear it. Historians debate whether Gotha truly didn't know. Some argue that camp operations were visible. Prisoners marched through town. Supplies moved regularly. The industrial scale of the operation couldn't be completely hidden. Others contend that Nazi operational security was tight, and civilian populations often genuinely didn't understand the scope of what was happening. But that's almost beside the point. What Patton understood, what his actions that day proved, is that knowledge and willingness to know are different things. A population can be kept ignorant, but they can also keep themselves ignorant. They can accept the official stories. They can avoid asking questions. They can look away from the suspicious details. They can convince themselves that whatever is happening in those camps is not their responsibility. And then, when they're forced to look directly at the consequence of that willful ignorance, the weight of it can be unbearable. After the war, investigations documented that Ohrdruf was not an anomaly. It was a replica of camps across occupied Europe. Thousands of people lived near these camps. Thousands chose not to know. Thousands claimed, when confronted with the truth, we didn't know. How could we have known? Patton's answer was direct. You could have known. You chose not to. The forced march through Ohrdruf was his argument made physical. It was a statement about complicity and denial. It was the brutal assertion that, in the face of evil on that scale, ignorance is not innocence, it's a choice. The mayor of Gotha walked through that camp and saw the evidence of everything he had told himself was impossible. The comfortable lie collapsed. The reality became undeniable. And he couldn't survive the weight of it. That's not punishment. That's the natural consequence of seeing clearly what you've worked so hard to keep unseen. In the end, Patton's rage wasn't just about what had happened in the camp. It was about the people who had let it happen by refusing to see it, by choosing ignorance, by saying we didn't know when the evidence had been there all along if they had been willing to look. The liberation of Ohrdruf wasn't just the freeing of prisoners. It was the collision between a comfortable lie and an unbearable truth. And that collision changed everything.